Jamie McCoskie is a prisoner. If Texas has its way, he'll be dead within the hour. This is Executioner Watch. Huntsville, Texas, death penalty capital of the Western world, where executioners are preparing to put Jamie McCoskie to death by injecting him with a deliberate drug overdose. During the next hour, KPFT's Executioner Watch will broadcast live coverage on the killing in Texas, the state responsible for more than a third of all U.S. executions. Execution Watch host Ray Hill, legal analyst Jim Skelton, with criminal defense attorneys Susan Ashley, Larry Douglas, Mike Gillespie, and Jack Lee. Huntsville reporter outside the death house, Gloria Rubeck. Houston Vigil reporter Dave Atwood. Featured guest Jamie McCoskie, who taped an interview with Execution Watch from death row. The Execution Watch for Jamie McCoskie begins.
Good evening, this is Ray Hill. I'm the host of Execution Watch. The entire staff is available. We're all busy. Elizabeth has been working her hiney off trying to get us together. Gloria is in Huntsville. I think she's on hold. I'll be going to her in just a minute, but I've got a special announcement before I begin today's show. Tonight, on the Pacifica Evening News at 4 o'clock, Jamie McCoskie was going to come on and talk about conditions on death row and some other things. He gets into some of that during his interview in this show. That was blocked by Texas Department of Criminal Justice, saying that if he was on KPFT's evening news show, that he would his observers of his execution would be disallowed into the death chamber. I am upset about that in Grave Inn, and I know you fellows on death row are upset that Jamie did not get to do, he prefers to be called Lurch, that Lurch did not get to tell us what he wanted to tell us concerning the conditions on death row. So I have decided that I'm going to ask for special time on radio station KPFT to do a special show about death row conditions. And I want all you guys on the row to communicate with Gloria Rubeck, Tucker Wilson, the news director, Elizabeth Stein, the director of Execution Watch, or with me about what you want to be included in that show. We're not going to let the issues of the conditions on death row be treated lightly or information about it be blocked. I'm Ray Hill. I'm still Ray Hill. I'm the same Ray Hill that did the prison show for 30 years, and I expect to kick up some sand in this matter. So, fellows on the row, keep us informed. Inform Gloria, Tucker Wilson, news director at KPFT, include me, or Susan or Elizabeth Stein, who is the producer of the show, and we'll put that show together and we'll find time and we'll promote it. Also want to announce that on Christmas Day, December the 25th, beginning at 8 p.m., there will be a special Christmas edition of the prison show. I will host and produce that show, and I hope you will all listen in. They don't let you fellas have a lot of options on Christmas Day, so we're going to do a show and tell all of your friends that there will be plenty time in those several hours for them to call in. Make sure they have the call-in number 713-526-5738 or 713-526-KPFT if you spell better than you can count. This is the Execution Watch show tonight. Who we got on the phone? Elizabeth, is that Gloria? Put Gloria on. Gloria?
Okay.
What?
Yeah, I'm here, Ray. Hi.
What's going on up there?
Well, I'm watching up the hill here, and nobody has come out yet, neither the media nor Jamie's family and friends.
Thank you.
It's, wait a minute. It's so dark.
Yeah, well, the times have changed.
Exactly. I see, there's a car with their headlights in my face, and I see a few people, but I'm not sure what's happening. I don't think it's the witnesses. Perhaps the media just walked in. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we could find no evidence that anything was pending as of this late hour.
No, there's nothing pending, and I think that I think those 5 people might have been the media. No, there's nothing pending. There's a group of about 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, I don't know, 15 or 20 of us out here freezing our butts off.
And in the dark.
And in the dark, although Joanne has brought 3 cute little battery-powered lanterns. You know what, Ray? I heard what you were saying earlier. The men on death row cannot hear us because the warden has disconnected the radio antenna.
Well, they don't need an antenna to get us on the repeater. Literally, the repeater station's a few hundred yards from the...
I think that is them. The witnesses seem to be crossing the street, and if you will hang on just a minute, I'm going to give them a message from us.
Okay.
To the family and friends and loved ones of Jamie, we're all out here tonight with you with heavy hearts. Petra, and all of you. Kathy Cox, Petra's dad, Yaroon, hey Kathy, and Jamie's brother-in-law. We love you. We appreciate all you've done for Jamie, and thank you for standing with him till the end.
Okay, sorry, Ray.
A normal radio on death row does not need an antenna to pick up 90.3.
Well, they can't get it. I don't know what they've done. They've done. I don't understand the technology, but many of the people I visit said that something to do with radio and TV has been switched around, and they can't get it.
Okay, well, I'll have a compliance officer at the FCC check out and see if they're generating a signal on their frequency.
Okay, that would be awesome because they're kind of upset about it because, you know, they knew that Execution Watch was on tonight. So, but there's a fairly large group of us out here tonight.
Well, let me do this, Gloria. If you're on death row or if you're in the Polunsky unit and you can hear this show, shoot me a kite at radio station KPFT 419 Lovett, Lovett Boulevard, Houston, Texas 77006, just to let me know you hear a signal. Okay?
Okay, and I'll be visiting, so I'll find out. But that's what everybody has been telling me.
Okay,
they
Gloria.
Can't hear it, so that's frustrating.
Gloria, I appreciate your report. Hang on, keep us informed when the witnesses come out.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that was Gloria Ruback. Gloria Ruback is an activist of quality. She's with the Texas Death Penalty Abolition Movement. You can find out more about her and her organization at www.abolitionmovement.org. Again, my name is Ray Hill. They're killing Jamie McCoskie, who in his interview prefers to be called Lurch. You will hear me call him Lurch during that interview. And the interview will begin after we get a report of what happened in this case, Jim.
Pretty straightforward. Jamie McCoskie abducted 2 people from an apartment. They were an engaged couple. There was a 20-year-old boy and a young man named Michael Dwyer, and he had a 19-year-old fiancée. He had a hunting knife and forced them to get in Dwyer's car and said he needed a ride. And they just took off kind of driving around toward Interstate 10 toward Beaumont. And while they were going, he made several kind of, I don't know if you call them crazy statements or what you'd call them. But at one time he threatened to kill them. Another time he said all he needed was a ride. Then he claimed that somebody wanted him to steal a car because they needed a car. And he ends up finds a vacant field kind of off Interstate 10. At that point, he gets Dwyer out of the car, makes the girlfriend handcuff Dwyer, throws Dwyer in the trunk of the car. He, in turn, gets in Dwyer's under the driver's seat, and he orders the girl to sit beside him. And he orders her then to take off her shorts, claiming that he wanted her to be in a position where she couldn't jump out and call the police. Then they start driving around again. He finds a vacant house right off of Interstate 10. He takes the girl into the house, sexually assaults and rapes her. And when he's finished with her, he takes her back to the car. And at that point, he gets Michael Dwyer out of the trunk of the car, drags him in the house. In the meantime, the girl's still sitting in the car. She could hear sounds like somebody being hit in the stomach, and she realized that McCoskie was doing something to her boyfriend. She jumps out of the car, runs across a field, a vacant field, gravel road, a vacant field, and beats on somebody's door to get help. And the occupants of the house were frightened, wouldn't let her in, and all of a sudden McCoskie shows up swinging a hunting knife. They then opened the door, let her in, and they called 911. When the police arrive, they go to the vacant house. They find Michael Dwyer had been stabbed like 24 different times, and he was dead. And, of course, at that point, they had a description of what the settlement looked like because both the people at the house and the young lady gave a description. And they also knew he had taken off in Dwyer's car because he fled the scene in Dwyer's car. What happened at that point, he goes back to the Montrose section of Houston where he's from, parks the car in front of an abandoned apartment where he used to live, in front of an apartment complex. When the police find the car, they then begin to process it, and somebody came out of the apartment complex and said, "Look, I heard about this murder, and I've heard the description. Who you're looking for is Jamie McCoskie. That's who McCoskie.
Noel.
That's who you should be looking for." They find McCoskie later at a house, and when they find him, he has a knife scabbard, a hunting knife scabbard on his belt, attached to his leg, and on the bedroom floor next to him was the knife used in the killings. And what they basically did to connect him to the killings, DNA evidence, of course, on the knife, and other items of evidence tied McCoskie to the murder, as well as the young lady who was raped and sexually assaulted, identified him not only in the lineup, but at trial. So guilt was pretty well assured. There wasn't much question about guilt. In fact, they never claimed otherwise, except for kind of in a haphazard sort of way that he was ever innocent. That claim has never been made either on appeal or at trial.
And in his interview, he doesn't.
No, he does never.
He just talks about different rationale.
Right.
Elizabeth, what happened in punishment?
Susan.
I'm sorry.
I did McCoskie wrong.
Okay. We'll be correct.
Payback, all right.
Yeah, right.
What happens at punishment is the state put on evidence that in 1981 he was sent to TYC, which is juvenile jail, for a serious crime. In 1983, he was convicted of kidnapping, but he was sentenced to shock probation. However, while he was in the penitentiary, he committed, a few assaults. He got into 5 fights with other inmates, and he assaulted or threatened 4 corrections officers. So that probation was later revoked based on the assaults. He also had other violations of prison rules. In 1987, he had a conviction for misdemeanor assault. And in 1992, while he was in the county jail, he assaulted another prisoner with a chisel and apparently cracked his skull. The state also put on evidence that he suffered from an antisocial personality disorder. And you could say the thing that was most, shall we say, unusual about this case is after the jury found him guilty and the jury was not present before the punishment phase of the trial, he picked up a large chair and threw it at the prosecutor.
And chairs in courtrooms are characteristically heavier than the norm.
Yes. And so, I mean, one of the things, of course, he was a big man. He was a big guy because a chair is kind of a big thing to throw at a prosecutor. And after that, of course, the jury did not see him throw the chair, but they would hear about it from witnesses that saw the chair thrown.
Yeah, it's hard to keep that kind of drama out of the life. Are there any Penry facts? What is Penry?
Well, we're talking about a death penalty case, and Penry, the issue of mitigation is what really evolved from the Penry case.
The voice you're hearing is our own Larry Douglas, who has the voice of God. So go ahead, Larry.
But anyway, the Penry case decided back in 1989 set in motion the evolutionary process of where we find ourselves here today in terms of whether there is a reasoned moral response to the evidence in the case that would suggest either giving the person the death penalty or life in prison. Now, during the time of Penry, the whole issue of punishment boiled down to three special issues. And those special issues was the conduct deliberate? Was the person a continuing threat to society? And whether the killing was unreasonable in response to the provocation of the victim. Penry sought to have the court provide for the jury being required to consider mitigation, saying there should be something that would allow the jury to decide that the death penalty would not be appropriate in this case, but rather life in prison would be. Now, from an evolutionary standpoint, where we find ourselves here today is by now the issue of mitigation is not only permitted, mitigation evidence, but actually required. So now in terms
of the rules on under Penry have changed.
As a result of Penry, the rules have evolved to where we are now, and that is, Penry asked for.
So what you just described was pre-Penry case rules and regulations for sufficiency of evidence to kill somebody.
Yes, in terms of whether mitigating evidence either may be considered and now must be considered. Okay.
And that's the difference pre-Penry and current Penry.
Exactly.
And now we're under current Penry laws, and at the time McCoskie was tried, we were in the pre-Penry law.
Exactly. And even after the mitigation factors have been required, the McCoskie case, there was still a mitigation issue in terms of how the special issue was applied. Well, first of all, how it was stated, and then further how it was applied.
Okay, Jim, because we got to change here.
Let me straighten up some things. Number one, there were really three Penry cases. This case was tried after Penry 1 and what we call Penry 2. And in both instances, the Supreme Court reversed it. And here's what they basically said. They introduced mitigating evidence, but they don't provide the words they use are a vehicle. They don't provide a vehicle to give meaning to those special issues. This was tried after Penry 1 and Penry 2. Both were declared the death penalty statute unconstitutional as applied to the special issues. So after we have now Penry 3, and our new instructions is Mike is going to explain.
So Penry had a long multiple run.
Well, he had the first two cases were reversed, and the third one was reversed on a different issue. But Michael's going to explain after the Supreme Court reversed the punishment issues. Michael's going to explain what the new punishment issues now.
Penry's from Texas.
Penry's from down in Bay Cliff, as a matter of fact.
Down in Bay Cliff, Texas. So they were trying to figure out how to kill this guy.
They've made a valiant effort, but boy, he's escaped the news every time.
Is he still alive?
Still alive, so far as I know.
Is he on the road?
As a matter of fact, let me tell you what's crazy about it. The prosecutor that tried it's dead, and he's alive. The guy that tried the case was killed in a car wreck coming to the Fat Stock Show.
What goes around?
Prosecutor's dead, Penry's living, so we'll see.
There may be an omen in that.
Better than a chair.
Mike, what have you got?
We have to understand is that we're a Christian society, and as a Christian society, we're supposed to have forgiveness. Many times we do not want to give forgiveness, but what these cases are about are people who come from horrible backgrounds who do not have the advantages of some of us from growing up. Penry was a man who was locked in a chicken coop, abused, burned by cigarettes, and tortured. He had problems that conscience says should be shown to the jury and maybe not excuse his actions, but be a mitigating circumstances. The problem with the first two cases is that the courts said they should be taken into account, but they didn't give a clear roadmap of how to do it. They talk about how the jury can look at it and weigh the evidence and apply it as they might. Well, that's just a way for the jury not to use it. What they have done now, they've made it very simple. What they've said is that the jury must consider all evidence admitted at guilt or innocent in the punishment state, including evidence that defendant's backgrounds or character and circumstances of the offense that mitigates or mitigates against the death penalty. They need to look at everything, from the beginning of the guilt into the punishment stage, and there's enough evidence there to show that there is special circumstances. They can take this into circumstances in order to stop the death penalty and make it life.
Now, in a real trial, it's the same jury that hears the guilt and innocence evidence.
That's correct.
And then it's almost a separate trial using the same jury on the same defendant in the same courtroom to deal with the punishment phase.
And that's correct. And that's why they say that when it comes to the punishment, the jury is not limited to punishment evidence. They can come in with the evidence from the guilt or innocence and use those as a reason.
Now, what happens if something happens? And remember, we had this crazy doctor that testified, and there were a lot of new punishment trials. How did they get the guilt or innocence evidence that they needed to consider in the punishment phase into those second trials?
I can't address that issue.
I can tell you how they do it.
Okay.
What happens when a case is reversed for punishment error, they have a punishment hearing.
Yeah.
But what the state is permitted to do, and I'll give you a good example. If you recall when Larry O'Brien,
Sure.
the candy killer,
Candyman,
had absolutely no prior convictions, and what the court said, you can take the facts adduced at punishment and prognosticate if they're so bad he's going to be a danger in the future. So what they do in those cases, they try it for punishment only, but they bring the same evidence in as though it were guilt or innocence. They bring the same witnesses, bring everybody in, because the facts adduced at guilt or innocence are admissible at punishment, and they retry the case all over again, but only on the punishment issue.
Okay.
It's kind of unfair because what happens if you're tried for punishment only, they try the case all over again from the state side with the state witnesses. All that evidence came in as though there had not been, as though there's a guilt or innocence issue. And it's not an issue. And they bring all that in at punishment.
Thank you for explaining that. I'm going to take a break here because Dave Atwood is on the phone. Punch him up.
Here.
Dave, where are you?
Well, we're out at the corner of Holcomb and Alameda by the Dominican Sisters.
Okay, you went out there where you can get a good stiff northern breeze.
Right. The wind blows through here pretty good.
I hope you sweatered up.
Yeah, we are. I think everybody here is pretty warm from what I can tell.
Well, as you probably knew, because I know you follow these things very closely, we went into tonight's execution with nothing pending. The witnesses across the road, a little bit late, they were in no hurry because there wasn't any danger for a reversal. I'm fixing to play Jamie's interview with me prior to his execution.
All right.
How many folks you got out there?
I think we had about 10 people here.
Okay.
11 people, they say. So everybody's all bundled up.
Well, the ladies count better than you do, I am sure. Now, there is a really special occasion coming up with Archbishop Emeritus Firenze. Do you want to mention that?
Yes, this Sunday at 11 o'clock Mass at the Co-Cathedral downtown. The Mass is going to be devoted to abolition of the death penalty, and it's done in solidarity with the people all around the world who are going to be celebrating Cities for Life, Cities Against the Death Penalty. And last year there were over 1,500 cities around the world that did something at the end of November to speak out against the death penalty. Sometimes it was a church service like we're having. Sometimes it's lighting up a monument, like in Rome. They light up the Colosseum and have a program outside the Colosseum. But there are many, many cities around the world, and it grows every year. It started out with a couple of hundred, I think, in Italy primarily, and then it went up to 500, 700, and 1,000. Now, last year was 1,500 cities. So what it indicates is a worldwide movement against the death penalty.
So it's the 11 o'clock Mass at the Co-Cathedral downtown Houston.
Right.
And
Archbishop Firenze will be
presiding.
Will be there to give a talk against the death penalty.
Well, thank you, Dave. I appreciate your call. Give our regards to the vigilance.
I will.
Y'all
They're
bundle
a bunch
up.
of hardy souls.
Y'all
Ray.
bundle up and stay warm. Thank you.
All right, you take care.
Okay, that was Dave Atwood, and he's out there. And we've got a new pope in this world. His name's Francis. He seems to have some different things, and he's presiding globally over this event. But Bishop Firenze and I have frequently found occasion to disagree about a lot of stuff, but on this issue, he and I are together. I think I'll probably attend 11 o'clock Mass at the Co-Cathedral.
Ray, one more thing I'd like to talk about, if I may. The interesting thing to me about this new instruction, I think it's good that they bring to the forefront to the court's attention the background of the defendant to make a good decision to maybe give him mercy. But the problem sometimes, it could have the different effect that people want. Because if you have somebody with people on the fence, the death penalty of life, bringing in his abusive childhood, bringing in the things that happened to him, can make people think he's more scary and dangerous
he's a mad
than
dog,
he is.
yeah.
And so you have a problem.
It could backfire.
You want to bring it in, but you got to be careful that it doesn't backfire on you.
I think we're going to hear the interview with Jamie McCoskie now. I want to tell you that after we get through with today's program, you can tell your friends that it's available on the archives at both Execution Watch and KPFT.org. www.executionwatch.org. We have an archive. It'll be up very quickly on www.kpft.org, but we'll have it up by tomorrow on executionwatch.org. And then this is being videotaped, this show, as well as the interview with Jamie is being videotaped, and that will be broadcast on Houston Media Source. If you have Comcast Television cable, you can get that on Channel 17. We will announce through every mechanism we have, including executionwatch.org and the Execution Watch face page. Just put Execution Watch in your face page search, and it'll pop right up, and we will make all of these announcements in a timely fashion. Now, the interview with Jamie McCoskie. What's your name?
McCoskie.
First name?
Jamie.
What do you mean to call you? McCoskie or Jamie?
They call me Lurch.
Call you Lurch. Still call you Lurch.
That's what they call me.
That's what you were known in Montrose as, Lurch.
Yeah.
Lurch, there's a few things about your case that is a little confusing to me. There was supposed to be a trip to Beaumont in your case. What the hell is that about?
What the hell that's about? Well, now that I've got a date, I don't have a problem disclosing that. So-called victim in my case wanted us to go out there so he can retrieve the money that he took from a girl that was living with me.
So the victim wanted to go to Beaumont.
Yeah. See, I was running haunted houses, and during the day I would put my money. Well, I get off like at 2 at night. During the night, I put my money inside of a dresser drawer, and the girl that was living with me took the money and tried to double it up. She went to this guy to buy some acid.
Okay.
But she went to the same guy that I bought dope from, weed. And I always told her to stay a couple blocks down the street and don't follow me. Well, she found out who I was, and she went up there the day that I was at work, said, I want to buy this acid. He jacked her. You know what that is, right?
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Well, we're talking about Montrose 25 years ago.
20 years, yeah.
Yeah, and it was a little different place than it may be today.
Yeah, but he jacked her. Well, he didn't. I have a reputation in that neighborhood being some person that a bit violent, let's put it like that. So I came over there. He didn't know me at the time, but I met him out in the parking lot because he just got back from a grocery store. So I told him, this girl is my woman. You took that money, and I want that money back. He gave me the baloney, but he didn't have the money, but he knew a guy that had money that owed him. Then he said he didn't have money for the car. So I told him that I would pay for the gas to get out there. I wanted my money back. That was my woman. You took it from me. That's how we wound up. Well, actually, we stopped at a gas station. That was only 2 blocks away from his apartment complex. Now, if you've been in that gas station, you come up from here, Montrose over here, you start coming up. There's a little U-Totem store.
Yeah.
That gas, the pumps are almost, I say at least 40 feet up to the store, away from the store.
Yeah.
I'm in the back seat. I'm turned sideways because I'm so tall.
Yeah.
I can't sit. She's in the front. He's in the driver's seat. We get there. He gets out and pumps the gas, and I give her the money. She goes up. Now, I got this huge knife. I always carry it. That's the way I am. If they were such a threat, if I was going to do something, I have to get out of the back seat and out of that car there's houses all along behind that. You told him. Mm-hmm. She could have took off, ran it, and he could have took off too.
And you couldn't have got him.
And I couldn't have got him.
So these people you're supposed to kidnap
right. So
are actually doing the driving.
One of them's doing the driving, the woman is on the passenger side at that point.
And you were folded up
in the back seat,
like a piece of cardboard in the back seat. And at your size, what kind of car was it?
Like a Taurus.
Taurus?
I think it's Taurus.
Taurus?
Two-door.
Two-door Taurus. And you were in the back seat.
Back seat.
And you couldn't have gotten out of that car in less than 10 minutes.
I'm 6'7". Yeah. You want me to show you? I'm 6'7".
No, Lurch, I know you from Montrose. I know
back then, I was a big boy. I'm skinny, and I lost all my muscle because of my back injury. Yeah. But I was a big boy back then, and we go all the way out there.
Well, now okay, we got the trip to Beaumont down. You wind up going in that car to Beaumont.
Right, and we find out that there was no such address that he gave me. We pull over to like a little creek area, and there's two people in a Blazer. I told them to stop. I want to find out where this address is because we keep driving around and around in circles. Yeah. So I get out and I go over there and ask the dude, hey.
Now you're away from the car.
Away from the car.
People that you have kidnapped.
Away from the car, like from here to where twice the distance where the soda water machine is over there.
Good 40 feet.
I walk over there and I ask him, where's this address? He said, there's no such address. I said, you live here? He goes, yes. I come back.
Okay, now the people that you're supposed to be holding in fear and kidnapper in the car, and you go 40 feet away to inquire of a passerby as to where this address is, and they did you take the keys with you?
No, they got the keys.
Okay.
They got the keys.
And so if they thought that they were being kidnapped, this would be the time for them to get away from you and your knife.
In the street that we're on, all these are houses.
Don't cover the mic. Hold
all these are houses over here. Yeah. So they could have ran to any of those houses.
Yeah. Okay. Then how did this become a case?
Oh, well, when I came back,
you
know how like sometimes you'll see somebody give you a strange look? That's a survival tactic here in the prison system. Because there's so much violence goes on, you have to pay attention to body language, or you don't survive in this place. Okay. Same thing. I walk up and she's giving me a weird look, and I'm looking. By this time, we have switched. At the gas station, I told her to get in the back, let me sit in the front because it's killing me. See? Yeah. By this time, I get over. She's giving me a strange look, and I'm looking at this dude. When I sit down, I have to turn sideways because I'm so tall. My butt goes in first. When I turn, my knife is here. He grabs my knife. Now, I don't know what provoked him to do that, but it was on. These two people are still in the Blazer. Mm-hmm. All right? I turn around and grab the knife. We're pulling back and forth. When he pulls it, it stabs him in the side. I have never denied that that's what killed him.
Okay.
All right. But she gets frustrated when I got him in a headlock, and I tell her, because he has handcuffs on the mirror, get the handcuffs, put them on him. When she puts them on him, I'm looking at his side. He's not bleeding a lot. Now, I don't know how bad this is, but I said, we're going to put him in the back. This is not a trunk. It has a piece of, these new cars, it has a piece of cardboard.
Yeah.
And felt on the top. So he's getting air back there and everything. So I put him back there until I can get somewhere to drop him off. Okay. Because I want to get away from these two, just in case they decide to call the law. Because I've done stabbed this man. I'm ex-con.
Okay.
So I'm automatically going to jail. I don't care what band, especially in Houston.
You're already in the crosshair.
So I want to get out of this neighborhood. I don't know this neighborhood either. So I go all the way back where I'm at to get him out.
This is close to Beaumont or in Beaumont?
This is out by the brewery. Out where, you know where the brewery is out there?
Yeah, where the Bush Brewery is?
Right, there's about 3 blocks from that.
Okay.
Then we drive all the way back downtown off of 45, go down, and we'll go a block over from Main and Elgin, be a street over. There's a abandoned house there, right beside the freeway. It's up in there. There's abandoned house. I drove up there to get him out of the car, to put him up in the house. And I was going to undo him and leave him there, and told him he better not get up. That I'm taking the car for payment for what he did. He took my money. That's where it happened. Now, I'd rather leave the rest.
Okay. Well, I mean, you can talk about what you want to, not what you're talking. But
that's how
that was the goings on. So you never actually made it all the way to Beaumont. You made about as far as Jacinta City?
Yes.
Okay. And then it was back to Montrose. That's a pretty long trip.
That's a long trip.
That's a 15, 20-minute trip, even on the freeway.
Right.
Okay. Now, how was this case handled in the courtroom? Who was your lawyer?
Oh, Jim Peacock was my trial attorney.
Was your original lawyer?
Right.
Well, didn't Jim die?
No.
No?
It was, God, what's his name? It was my appeal attorney that died.
Okay, but Jim Peacock, how did that trial go?
The trial?
Yeah, were you able to get into evidence what you think needed to be get into evidence?
It was trials are a joke. It's not, you would think you go in there and they go with evidence here and evidence there, but it's a joke. It's who can lie the better. Whether the prosecutor or defense can lie better and convince the jury. That's what it's all about.
Well, what did you think of the prosecutor's version of the story?
Prosecutor version of the story. I think the prosecutor only went by what the woman said, not what the evidence showed. Because there was question later on. They say I raped this woman, but they never charged me with the rape. That's because I was very persistent on taking tests and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And I said, there's evidence that I did not do that. Why? And then, as your little common sense, why would I drive way in the hell out there to come right back to the same area to do that? Why not do that and then be gone?
Yeah, you could have taken care of business right there
Right.
in that block. Did the fact that you had been hijacked for money?
Huh?
It was the fact that you or your woman had been jacked for the money.
The woman, yes.
Was that ever brought into evidence?
No, they never wanted to talk to her. She tried to talk to the prosecutor, and they said no. They did not want to talk to her.
Well, she's talking to the prosecutor now.
Right.
Is she their witness?
No.
Okay.
The woman that was staying with me,
Yeah.
they refused to talk to her.
Okay. So your lawyer didn't talk to her and didn't put her on the stand,
No,
and
my-
the state didn't talk to her
No.
and put her on the stand. So
No.
she was not a part of this picture.
No.
Had she been a part of this picture, do you think a clear...
More doubt would have been put in the prosecutor. Don't get me wrong. They knew that something wasn't right about her story, but they did not want to come back and say, well, because you killed a person. See, it's all about whether they win the case or not. It's not whether or not a person's guilty and what they really deserve. The stronger the case they get, the better it looks for prosecutors. So if they see an opportunity to take advantage of a case and enhance it, then they're going to do that.
Well...
If they would have came and told me, said, look, what really happened? Let's sit down and talk about this and try to find out. I would have sat down and talked to them. And it would have, what I just got finished telling you, they would have went back.
Would have been substantiated by the physical evidence.
She's convincing, the victim's girlfriend's convincing his parents that they were just innocent and they didn't do nothing wrong. Well, all they have to do back then was test her blood. They have blood of her already. Test her blood, test his blood, and test, well, they have my blood. They can test that. All three of us are drugged out, but yet this so-called innocent. And all of a sudden, I'm looking, they bring her in the courtroom, and it's just like they have the old wicked witch come in as Mary Poppins.
Okay. Well, then, all right, you get through the case. How long was the jury out?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay, so this went...
Actually, I was those center blocks, like right there, was in between me and the cage that they had me in. I could hear. I was actually listening. They were using the bathroom, so they had long enough to use the bathroom. They already had a verdict.
Okay. Then it's appeals round.
It's appeals.
How did that go?
Well, my appeal attorney refused to communicate with me, and then he died, and then I get a new attorney. He's talking to me for about 5 minutes, and he was already leaning out of the chair. He didn't really want to talk to me then. Then the second time he come up here, he filed motions with other inmates' names in it and didn't file what I wanted because I have evidence that...
Wait a minute, but stop. He filed motions with other inmates, so he's doing a word processor thing?
Right, copy.
Yeah, just copy something that he filed in another case.
Exactly.
And it didn't really relate to your case at all, except maybe a principle here or there that deals with it.
Right. Actually, the apartment complex, he put down, there's abandoned field on the other side of that, and there's houses all up in there.
There's no abandoned fields in Montrose.
I know that.
Every once in a while we get abandoned lot, but it's got something burned down.
Right. But that just shows you how he refused. And I asked him to change my appeal. He didn't want to do that either. And what I said, as soon he was promised me Rose Garden, as soon as he got up, he left me thorned. That's what he did. And he didn't even show up whenever they gave me execution date. They gave me execution date in the courtroom without him being there. And I've been taken back to have an incompetency hearing. Their attorney's supposed to be there. They didn't do that either. And where's my attorney at? So, I mean, this whole thing is just, it's amazing. What they need to do, if they're going to do this, get rid of all the attorneys, give money back to the taxpayers they're paying these people, and just push paper like they're doing now. Because that's all they're doing is pushing papers. You know?
It's all process and no reality.
There you go. And it's so bad on death row that people want to leave. Like me, they couldn't kill me quick enough. I went off death row. It's so horrible in here. You know, and people say, well, you kill somebody, you deserve what they give you. Well, everybody understands that. But let's get to the fact they get billions of dollars and they're not providing the service that the taxpayers are paying, and yet they're steadily raising taxes to cover the expense, the stuff that they're not paying for. Why not give that money back to taxpayers?
Well, you bring up a topic that I am sensitive about there, because I think that both Execution Watch and the Prison Show could do a better job of covering issues about treatment on death row. Why don't you do that for us? Why don't you tell us what we should be telling the broadcast audience?
Like what kind
about
of
treatment on death row?
Well, they steal our food.
What do you mean?
He keeps pointing.
No, look into that lens.
Huh?
Tell that story
No, see, look at the lens when you're telling that story. He wants you to connect with the audience on this, and I want you to connect with the audience, because I think the Prison Show and Execution Watch should be important to you, and that you have some questions about the competence of that. Here's your chance to make up for that. So look into that mirror and tell us what we should be reporting to our audience about your treatment on death row. Is that fair?
No, yeah, that's fair. It's basically like a manipulation tool that they'll sit there and put on the internet that people are getting this food, for instance, and they're stealing it or they're watering down. Like, for instance, they've taken all our milk away, and they put, like, instead of putting like 4% to whatever they're supposed to with milk, they're putting like 10%. And they're stealing, they're walking out. I used to work in the kitchen, so I know that they're stealing the food. And, you know, the taxpayers are still paying for that big feast they advertise on the internet. Anybody can go on the internet and see that they advertise a bunch of stuff, but you ask some of these officers and inmates, they'll tell you that there's no such thing. And what I don't get is that they're paying all these officers money to work, and yet they give them food. And it costs, there's 70,000 officers in this prison system. Mm-hmm. It costs a lot of money to feed 70,000 people 3 times a day. and yet the taxpayers are paying for them. But yet they're steadily, not only are they doing that, but they're making stuff like shoes. They sell these shoes to us. Taxpayers are paying for the material already. They get free labor and they're making $7 a hit. Who's getting that money? Where is that money going to? If they can make money off the stuff that they make and process and force the inmates to make, then they should give the taxpayers more money back. They shouldn't have to fork up. Now, you go in here and you for instance, you don't get no toilet paper. They're supposed to provide you toilet paper, but they don't. They give you one roll, and half the time they've reduced it so much that the average person does not get the toilet paper when they ask for it.
How often do they give you one roll?
One roll a week.
One roll a week.
And if you need more, you're stuck out. Like me, I have back problems and I usually go to the bathroom 4 or 5 times a day or more, right? It's just like they tell me there's nothing wrong with my knees, right?
Yeah. Oh my God.
This one is swelled up as big as a cantaloupe. They went in and actually had to cut it open. I had
to let the fluid out.
I had to force security because medical said there was nothing wrong with it and it was that big. And I have nothing but respect for females because I was going through hot flashes and so on. And whenever medical refused to do it,
oh my God.
Whenever these eyes get infected,
yeah,
it swells up. Like right now, but they claim that there's nothing wrong with my legs. And every time that I try to get somebody to get a hold of them to give me medical treatment, they tell me they're providing this. But whenever I complain enough, like right now, there's a lawsuit, ACLU is filing a lawsuit against the prison conditions. They have stopped me altogether in my medical. They don't give me nothing now. And they're trying to take away my walker.
Well, if you weren't here,
right,
in this air-conditioned visit room, what would conditions be like? Tell me.
Well, it'd be very hot. It'd be like 130 degrees. You have to sleep on the floor.
There's no circulation.
No circulation. Well, the building we're at has central air. It has air blowing in the water to cool it. But the airs have mold growing in it. If it was out in the free world, it was a building, the government would condemn the building. But what they did is for a while there, whenever, like right now, their ACA is inspecting this, which is a joke. They just pay them so they go by and pretend like.
Well, actually, the way ACA works, if the check doesn't bounce, you get the approval.
Right.
So and it's self-inspection. They send somebody. They call them ACA inspectors. They're actually TDCJ employees.
Right. But they clean, like for instance, the vents. They have white paint on them. They had so much mold grown. They told them they had to wash that off. They went back, put black paint on there. And said, okay, now you're approved, but yet there's mold steadily slinging out, and inmates have to cover that up or they get it all over. Most of the people that have been here longer than 10 years, even officers, have breathing problems. Yeah. You know, and it's like, well, taxpayers are paying for money to take care of the inmates. If they're not going to give us the proper care, the food and stuff like that, you know, then they need to give it back.
Lurch, you're doing real good. You said you didn't know what to talk about. You're doing, for a guy who don't know what to talk about, you're talking about some good stuff. Now I want you to get close and personal. I want you to tell us what you think that the prison show can do to improve itself.
Well, I've already told you, I'll tell you what like it is.
Go ahead.
The prison show, or are you talking about Execution Watch?
Now, let's talk about prison show first, then let's get to Execution Watch.
You need to get rid of Kimberly.
Her name's Catherine.
Oh, Catherine, I'm sorry. I'm old. Catherine. They need to get rid of her. She does not. She is good. She might be a good person and stuff, but that is not the position she should have. There should be somebody else that's more dedicated. I don't know why that woman ain't don't have that position.
Elizabeth was producer at the prison show. When I left, she quit and stuck with Execution Watch.
Why don't she? How come she can't have the prison show?
Well, I think she'll listen to you when she sees this film.
When she sees the film?
Yeah.
Well, she can't hear me now? I want to know her comment.
No, she doesn't have a telephone in her ear.
Oh, she don't have a telephone in her ear?
Now, the other question is, what's wrong with Execution Watch and what can it do to improve itself?
Because you have two attorneys that are for the death penalty, regardless what they tell you, and two of them are not getting the facts straight about the law. You know, if the inmates are going to listen to it, they don't want to listen to people that are in favor of killing them, or or the civilians that are against the death penalty. And I've asked people from society the same thing I've asked inmates, and they have the same opinions. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm sure that they need to have people there that are familiar with the law, but they should get their facts straight. They need to go do some research, regardless if they're in the favor of, like I've told you, I'm not against the death penalty. So I can't fault the man for being pro.
You can't fault somebody having the same opinion you got?
Right, but I'm not like they are. I speak what's on my mind. I don't try to sugarcoat something. You're going to come out and admit it, or you're going to, or you're not going to be believing in it, bottom line.
Well, there are two things that I'm fixing to end the interview here in just a minute. But I want to bring up two things you mentioned. One of them is I want to get off death row any way I can as quickly as I can. You said that.
Oh God.
Are you ready? Are you ready for this execution?
I hear they have a red phone in that room from the governor's office. I'm going to try my best to kick that off that receiver if it starts ringing. I'm ready to get out. This place is horrible. It's hard to put in words because if you sit up there.
No, let me tell you something. You don't have to put it in words. We're on film. Your face says it all. Lurch, I want to thank you for interviewing with Execution Watch. Now, you know that when we play this on the radio, you're going to be laying on a gurney somewhere.
Really?
Yes.
Well, hot dog.
And you know, a week or two later, this will be on television and they will repeat it 40 times.
Oh, yeah. Huh.
You know that.
Really?
Do we have your permission to broadcast this interview in radio and television?
As long as you promise I get executed.
Okay.
I'm ready to get out of this place. And I can't get anything better but a life sentence.
Lurch, I don't know what to say except I have enjoyed this interview. It has been shocking.
Shocking?
Well, I mean, your attitude about your own demise is something that I usually don't get over this telephone.
You know how many people were willing to drop their pills if they knew how to? I get people ask me all the time because I helped do one person, one of the Texas 7. I helped do his paperwork. And so many people come and tell me to do their paperwork. But a lot of times when you do the paperwork, sometimes their attorneys want them to change their mind. So then they wind up coming back telling me to change it, and this wastes my time. So it's horrible. It is.
Thank you for the interview, brother. Good luck.
Yeah, we try to change some of the
change.
things in the show.
No, I ain't gonna
I'm
change.
not talking about you. I'm talking about the show.
Okay, I ain't gonna. Well, I will talk to him about what
That woman
you had
right
said.
there probably be a good person.
I got to ride back to Houston in the car with her. I'll talk to her about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
Thank you,
right.
Lurch.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, that was the interview with Jamie Lurch McCoskie. Gloria's on the phone. Punch her in. Gloria?
Hi, Ray.
We just got through with Jamie's interview, and he
Well,
said...
it was too weird listening to Jamie talk, knowing that he's dead. As I'm listening to him, I can picture him, sitting in the visiting room.
Well, he said he wanted it broadcast, anything except interrupting his execution.
Right. No, he wanted the execution to take place, and it has. The witnesses came out at 10 till. We're getting ready to go to the church and see the body and tell him goodbye in person.
Give our regards to the vigilance and those that go to the chapel. And we got to go off the air in just a few minutes.
Yeah, I know. So thanks.
Thank you, and I'll see you when you get back to civilization.
Okay. All right.
Bye. And
bye.
that was Gloria Ruback. She's an activist with the abolition movement. You can find out more about her at www.abolitionmovement.org. Jack Lee. This is you were supposed to talk about mental illness. Now you got more to talk about.
Oh, I have a whole mess of stuff to talk about now. That was real interesting listening to him talk. He's lucid.
Yeah.
He's perfectly lucid.
That would interpret as competent for purposes of trial and conviction.
Right. Being lucid is enough to insanity has 2 points. You have to know the act that you were doing was wrong. Secondly, you have to know the quality or the nature of what you're doing. So, for example, if I tell you I'm the Easter Bunny, I'm still competent. Now, if I tell you I'm the Easter Bunny and I'm going to hit you with an axe, but it's okay, your head will grow back. I'm still competent.
Okay.
Because I understand the nature of what I'm doing. That putting an axe to your head will make it disappear, and that will hurt you. But I'm reassuring you that it will grow back. Just because I'm wrong doesn't mean I'm not. Just because I'm wrong doesn't mean I'm not competent. And in this case, I can easily see Jamie being competent. Even if his
weird.
It's weird, but I'm not here to judge.
What do you
whether
think
he's
about
weird.
my identity that he somewhere along the line developed an identity with Lurch from the Addams Family? May have misinterpreted that, but that's tied up in who Jamie thinks he is.
I think from the interview, it sounds like he believes he is Lurch, that he believes he's a gentle giant, that he is a gentle giant. And, this could be a the John Steinbeck book. What was that?
Mice and Men. You're talking about
Mice and Men.
You're talking about the landing in life.
All right. We've got to wrap her up. You're listening to radio station
physically resembles Lurch very strongly.
Yeah, well, you will see it on the television. Those of you who listen to this will be able to go to www.hmstv.org soon. Join Execution Watch face page and our website for announcement. And I'll tell you that, or you can just email me. I want to thank Jamie McCoskie for agreeing to be interviewed on his Execution Watch show. Our attorneys are Jim Skelton, Susan Ashley, Larry Douglas, Michael Gillespie, and Jack Lee. They worked very hard on researching these cases and spent a good bit of time chewing it up among themselves and dividing up the responsibilities. I want to thank Gloria Ruback, our reporter on the streets in front of the death chamber, and a very good friend of Jamie McCoskie's. She's going to the chapel where his body is laying, and they'll be able to touch the body while it's still warm. I know that's morbid, but that's what happens on executions in Texas after it's over. I want to thank Dave Atwood for coming us up here. And tonight we have a new board op. I'm sorry I didn't have her name on paper. Ann is our board op tonight. Thank you, Ann, for doing a wonderful job. Elizabeth Stein is our producer, and she works just about as hard as everybody except Jim putting these things together. Our technical director, Otis McClay, was in the building during the production of tonight's show. The lights went out, and we did all kinds of manner of things to get them back on. You're listening to radio station KPFT Houston.